I'm talking about deep shame, the kind that whispers you're not good enough, you're not lovable, you're broken. Some people carry this kind of shame around like a second skin. They've been told they weren't enough over and over by a parent, a teacher, a partner, or a culture that demanded perfection and punished imperfection. And if that shame isn't acknowledged and processed in healthy ways, it doesn't just disappear. Instead, it festers. It becomes a wound that demands relief. And for some, the quickest, the cruelest form of relief is to hand that shame to someone else. So they humiliate, they point out someone else's flaw, they make a cutting comment in front of others, they laugh too loudly at someone's mistake. Why? Because for a moment, just a moment, if you look weak, they feel strong. If you are the target, they are safe. But here's the truth, shame that gets handed down never heals. Humiliating others might bring a split-second sense of superiority, but it only reinforces the cycle of pain. People who publicly humiliate others are often drowning in their own shame. They're just trying to get air, even if it means pushing someone else under. It's tragic, and it's also not your fault. You didn't cause their shame, you don't deserve their projection, and you are under no obligation to carry what they can't. So if someone humiliates you in front of others, take a breath, step back. Remember this, it's not about you, it's about what they haven't healed in themselves. And instead of letting that shame stick to you, let it slide off, because it never belonged to you in the first place. Would you like the rest of the key points expanded in this style as well? There's a kind of humiliation that doesn't come with shouting or sarcasm. It comes dressed in control, in tightly gripped conversations, sharp corrections, and public power plays that leave you questioning your place in the room. Here's the hard truth. Many people who humiliate others aren't confident at all. They're scared. But instead of saying, I feel threatened, or I'm afraid I'm not enough, they grab the steering wheel. They try to control the situation, and sometimes they try to control you. Why? Because insecurity doesn't like being exposed. It hates vulnerability. And when someone feels out of their depth, whether it's because of your intelligence, your calm presence, your rising success, or your emotional honesty, they don't always pause to self-reflect. Instead, they react. And often that reaction looks like dominance. So they cut you off when you speak. They question your confidence in front of others. They make snide remarks about your ideas, not because they're truly confident, but because they're terrified that they're losing control of the room, the conversation, or their status. In their mind, if they can put you in your place, they can keep their own. But let's be clear, control isn't the same as leadership, and humiliation isn't the same as authority. True strength doesn't need to belittle others to feel powerful. It invites collaboration, it makes space, it listens. What masquerades as control in these moments is often just a shield, armor against the fear of being overlooked, outshined, or made irrelevant. The next time someone tries to shrink you in front of others under the guise of correction or keeping order, don't immediately doubt yourself. Take a pause and ask, is this really about me? Or is this about their discomfort with feeling out of control? When we can name it, we can protect ourselves from absorbing it. You don't have to trade your peace for someone else's panic. Let them keep their armor. You keep your power. We've all heard it, that moment when someone says something sharp, embarrassing, or deeply personal in front of others, and then follows it up with, relax, I was just joking. But here's the thing, when a joke punches down, it's not funny. It's cruelty in disguise. Humor is a powerful tool. It can build bridges, ease tension, and bring people together. But when someone uses it to humiliate, especially in front of others, it becomes a weapon that lets them wound you while dodging accountability. Because when they say, "Can't you take a joke?" what they really mean is, "I want to say something unkind without being called out for it." This kind of humor isn't harmless. It chips away at dignity. It sends a signal to the room this person is fair game. It encourages others to laugh, sometimes out of discomfort, sometimes to fit in, and suddenly you're standing alone while everyone else is entertained at your expense. In that moment, it lingers, not just in your mind, but in your body, because being laughed at publicly touches something primal in us, our need to belong, to be safe, to be respected. So why do people do it? Sometimes it's immaturity. They haven't learned how to connect without teasing. Sometimes it's deflection. If you're the target, they're not. And sometimes it's about power. They know the laugh will win them approval, and that matters more to them than your feelings. It's also learned behavior. Some people grew up in families or cultures where roasting each other was the norm. But let's be honest, when teasing leaves someone hurt, quiet, or shrinking back, it's not just how we are, it's a pattern that needs interrupting. Here's what's important to know. You're allowed to take up space without being mocked. You don't owe anyone your silence just because they call their insult a joke. You're allowed to say, "That wasn't funny to me." You're allowed to pull someone aside and say, "When you said that in front of everyone, it made me feel small." And if they can't hold that conversation, that's not on you. That's a sign of their emotional immaturity, not your sensitivity. You deserve humor that includes you, not humor that erases you. You deserve spaces where laughter feels safe, not sharp. And you're not being too sensitive for wanting kindness to be part of the joke. That's not weakness, that's clarity. Some people humiliate others not because they're cruel by nature, but because cruelty was their education. They were raised in homes where shame was a tool, not a mistake, where affection was conditional, sarcasm was a language, and ridicule was dressed up as love. Maybe they were told to toughen up, don't be soft, or laugh it off every time they were hurt. Maybe their worth was measured by how well they could take a hit, not just physically, but emotionally. So what happens to a child who grows up in that kind of environment? They learn that love looks like mockery. They learn that control equals safety. They learn that it's better to be the one doing the humiliating than the one being humiliated. It becomes normal to them. When that child grows up, unless they choose to break the cycle, they'll carry that blueprint into adulthood, into friendships, into workplaces, into parenting, into relationships. And when they're uncomfortable or threatened, they'll reach for the only tool they were ever handed, public shame. It's not because they're inherently bad, it's because they never learned another way. But here's where things get complicated. Just because something is understandable doesn't mean it's acceptable. Understanding why someone humiliates others gives us insight. It helps us recognize that this is a cycle, a wound, a legacy of dysfunction, not a personal attack rooted in truth. But that understanding doesn't mean we have to tolerate it. You can acknowledge someone's pain without letting them project it onto you. You can say, "I see where this may come from, and it's still not okay." Some people will hear that, they'll wake up to the impact of their words, and they'll begin the slow, brave work of unlearning. And others, they'll double down because the cycle is familiar. And familiarity feels safer than change, even when it's damaging. If you've ever been publicly humiliated by someone and later told yourself, maybe that's just how they are, or that's how they were raised, take a pause. Yes, their background may explain the behavior, but it doesn't excuse your pain. You are allowed to break the pattern, even if they don't. You're allowed to choose compassion with boundaries. You're allowed to say the way you were raised is real, and I won't be another chapter in that same story. Cycles can end with you. And that is a quiet, powerful revolution. There's a particular kind of pain that comes from being humiliated by someone who was supposed to care about you. Someone you trusted, someone you laughed with, someone who knew your soft spots and decided to use them for entertainment. It stings deeper when it happens in public, when the joke lands at your expense and they look around the room not to see if you're okay, but to see if anyone laughed. That's when you realize they weren't trying to connect, they were trying to perform. Here's something hard but necessary to say. Some people crave attention more than they crave real connection. Connection is mutual. It's built on vulnerability, trust, and care. Attention, on the other hand, can be one-sided. It doesn't always require truth. It just needs an audience. People who value attention more than connection are often stuck in performative cycles. They want to be seen, heard, admired, and if that means throwing someone under the bus for a laugh or hijacking a conversation with a cutting remark, they'll do it because the reaction feels more important than the relationship. Sometimes it's subtle, a backhanded compliment during a meeting, a story shared in a group that you told them in confidence, a sarcastic joke that leaves you quiet and them smiling. Sometimes it's loud, public criticism, exaggerated storytelling, or open mockery meant to win the crowd. Why? Because applause feels like proof. And for someone who feels insecure or overlooked, that moment of attention is addictive. But here's the cost. Someone always gets dehumanized for the sake of their spotlight. And sometimes that someone is you. It's hard to admit when someone is more interested in the performance of connection than the reality of it. It's hard to face that what you thought was a bond was actually a stage. But clarity is a form of freedom. When we name what's happening, when we recognize that the person humiliating us is chasing validation, not relationship, we can stop personalizing the pain. We can start setting boundaries. You don't have to be the punchline just so someone else can feel important. You don't have to participate in a dynamic where being seen means being sacrificed. And most importantly, you don't have to stay small or silent just to preserve someone else's performance. Real connection doesn't cost you your dignity. It honors it. And you're left wondering, where did that come from? Why would they do that to me? Let me offer a possibility that's both painful and freeing. Sometimes your light, your confidence, your success, your kindness, your presence triggers something in them they haven't made peace with. You didn't do anything wrong. You just walked into the room being fully yourself. You spoke with clarity. You showed up with energy. You shared an idea, a talent, a truth. And in doing so, you unintentionally held up a mirror. In that mirror, they saw everything they weren't facing, their own insecurities, unrealized dreams, buried shame, or unresolved pain. And instead of leaning in with curiosity or admiration, they recoiled because your light made their shadow louder. This isn't about arrogance. It's not about being better than anyone. It's about what your authenticity stirs in others. Some will be inspired by, to others will feel threatened, not because you harm them, but because being around your fullness reminds them of where they feel empty. And in those moments, some people reach for the fastest form of protection. They try to dim your light. They make a joke at your expense. They interrupt your story. They downplay your accomplishment. They use sarcasm to reframe your strength as ego. Why? Because it makes them feel less uncomfortable, less exposed. It's easier to humiliate someone than to confront your own self-abandonment. But here's the truth that will anchor you when this happens. You are not responsible for how your light makes others feel, especially when their discomfort turns into cruelty.